All right, friends. Thank you for joining me today. Welcome to this special episode. And this is lesson 28, service flow. We are getting down to the end here. And really, it's not the end, as you all know by now. It's a new beginning. But the closing of this chapter is upon us. And I feel that we are really at the climax, or at least vastly or quickly approaching the climax here. So somebody's coming, and hopefully it's everybody, okay? Because we like to have a equal opportunity relationship, so we're both benefiting from this relationship. All right. So service flow. Now, I got to warn you, we are officially stepping into theory territory, meaning that I have not fully implemented what I am about to share with you. Okay. This is where I am currently in the implementation process, and I have designed the overall blueprint that I am implementing, but it is not yet fully implemented. So, kind of as I've been sharing these past several lessons where you guys are, you're catching up with where I am right now. So, we are literally at the cusp of where I am currently at in how I am designing and implementing and integrating and navigating all of these different things. So truly, when it comes to the service flow, it's really, again, like everything I share, it's not fucking complicated, but it's still has that fractal essence, as you will see, because the way that I create anything is essentially the way that I create everything. Just like the way you do anything is the way you do everything, because the intention behind it, the underlying essence behind it. There was a quote that I read today. It's from a famous magician. I want to say Crowley. It was his last name. I can't quite remember the name, but I was reading this in Gene Keys, something I study every day. And just, we're going to do a little side note here because I think it's important to share. So my morning routine, I've touched on this before, but I think it's important to touch on it again just right now. And I just want to share kind of exactly what I do. Not that you have to copy this, but it may kind of spark some things in you. Because the biggest thing with a morning routine, or really any kind of routine, is, yes, the thing in itself, but underlying that is a tool of remembering, a tool of reminding yourself, a tool of reminding yourself what you choose to continuously embody. And that's how I look at that, especially when it comes to a morning routine. So for me, the core thing, I'll walk through the whole thing just because, I get up, and I used to, I've played around with different times that I would get up and setting my alarm. And I went through a period of waking up at 3:30 every day because I just felt like I wanted to experience that, even though I was not getting all the rest that maybe I could have gotten, but it was something I felt that was necessary to experience, and various different times. But now I just wake up when I wake up, and it's always perfect timing, because the more I trust that, even something as simple as just trusting myself to wake up when I know that it's time to wake up is a process, is a practice to build trust in life in itself. All right. And then the more you trust in life, the more you recognize synchronicities in your life, and things just tend to unfold. So, all right, let's Just making sure we got our boy Echo over there. Sometimes he likes to sneak off into places. So what I do, when I wake up, and then I take a cold shower. That's been a staple for me. And then I brush my teeth. And then and this is kind of the core message here, the core part, is I have it's called Voyager Tarot. It's a tarot deck. And then I have, I forget the name exactly, but it's a I Ching card deck. It's like they're white cards, and they have the kind of the I Ching lines / broken lines on the front. If you type in on Amazon, and just from my description of that, you may know what I'm talking about. But either way, I have a I Ching tarot deck, or oracle deck as they might call it. And what I do is I pick one card from each of those decks. So I pick one card from the Voyager Tarot, and then I pick one card from the I Ching Tarot. And I just randomly, the way that I pick, I used to have elaborate little, lay them out and all these things, but I just kind of clear my mind while I shuffle them. And then I just pick one, like literally just random. I find the less I think about it, the less, I try to put into it. Usually the more I just get out of my own way and just allow for whatever to come through. So that's how I do it. And I do that for both of them. And then I look at them. And then at first, I don't really try to look at anything in particular or like read into it. I just kind of look at it as if I'm looking through it. Or in other words, people talk about the 1,000-mile stare, where you're looking, like I can look at this camera right now and I can look through it as if I'm looking at something far off in the distance. Okay. And that allows you to kind of open up your periphery and just take more information in. That for me, it just kind of stirs up my intuition a little bit. Sometimes I'll have little phrases that come to me, sometimes just little images, or, something usually comes to me, sometimes nothing at all, which is perfectly fine too. But I look at them both, and I look at them separately, and I look at them together, because I find that, just as a little reference, the tarot is this, in a sense, like universal root language of consciousness, where there's all these different archetypes. And then the I Ching is similar, although the I Ching is more, at least in my experience, more of like a dictionary of the human experience. So they're both very similar, and you can, even if you just use one or the other, you can get a lot out of them, and you would kind of encompass the entirety of the human experience, although with the big caveat that any kind of system, by definition, is going to miss, okay? Because it's an idea. But either way, it's very encompassing. And then both of them together, I find very powerful. So I have a little guidebook to Voyager Tarot, the one that comes with it, and then I have one that's kind of a supplemental that's more poetic. So I read both of those, and then again, I'm just kind of not looking too much into things. I don't try to tell this is what my day is going to be like, or this is my future, or any of that shit. I just allow what comes up to come up. And again, it's like it's a memory tool, remembering tool, because as I'm reading it, I'm like reading these different elements of the human experience. So I'm like reminding myself of different elements to be aware of the human experience and just life in general. Okay. And the I Ching, by the way, stands for the Book of Changes. So that might give you another little clue as to the subtle little differences between the tarot and then the I Ching. All right. And then once I read the tarot, I look at the I Ching, and there's a number associated with each one of the I Ching. It's 1 through 64. And each one of those numbers represents a different, at a basic level, a different mix of elements. So there's like fire, there's wind, there's lake, there's mountain, there's thunder, there's earth, there's heaven. There might be one that I'm missing, but there's different elements, and those are related to how, because there's always 6 lines, and they're either broken or unbroken lines, and the combination of those lines gives you what the different elements are. Okay, so I'm not going to make this a whole course about that, but basically I look at that, and then and this has been one of the biggest things here for me is I have the I Ching card deck, which I don't, at least the one that I got, I don't put a whole lot of weight in. I believe her name is Catherine that created them. And I feel like they're more at a more surface level. And maybe that was intentional, the way that she did that, which is helpful at times because it's more of a surface level reading. But I take the number that I get because I like how when I just randomly pick a card, it kind of helps to bypass the ego and expectations and ideas and things like that. And then I use that number and then I reference that in the Gene Keys book. So essentially the I Ching Tarot for me acts as a gateway to find a passage within the Gene Keys. I used to just open up the Gene Keys book at random. But then I like the idea of having, where I can just randomly pick a card and that points me to whatever gene key that I'm going to look into for that day. So once I do the card readings, then I have a series of books that I call these like my spiritual studies, my spiritual books. And the big difference with spiritual books or spiritual studies is these are books that I don't really want to finish, which is why I'm not like trying to just get through them in the same way that I might be consuming some kind of course or some other books where I just want to learn the tool. I want to just gain the information, just gain the perspective. I'm just trying to consume them and just get them through. Versus the spiritual studies, I'll read just small passages. Even though I may do it, certain books sequentially, it's still just maybe a page or so at a time, because I don't want it to end, because again, this is like a memory tool. This is me reminding myself of how I want to show up, of these different elements of the experience and things to help me continue to grow my awareness into, which then helps me to embody that in my day-to-day reality. Okay. So the I Ching deck points to the I Ching, or that points to the gene key that I study for the day. And then the gene keys are broken up into like 3 frequency bands, each one. So there's a shadow, a gift, and a city. So then I kind of look at the overall overview page, and then I just allow my eyes, or I ask my soul, which one of these different bands should I study? Because I don't want to read the whole thing because it's, multiple pages. So, it's either I'm drawn to the gift or the shadow or the city, and then I read that passage, okay? And then after I read the Gene Keys passage, I have these supplemental Gene Keys book that go through the different activation sequences of the golden path. And if you want more information, just go genekeys.com. You can get a free profile and, dive deeper into that if you want. But basically, there's the activation sequence, then there's the Venus sequence, and then there's the Pearl sequence. And they're all, there's different gene keys and all kinds of stuff related to it. But basically, he has little guidebooks to walk you through each one of those activation sequences. And I study little passages out of that. Okay, so right now I'm on the Venus sequence, moving through that. Okay, which again helps me to better grow awareness around and contemplate the different elements of me and my own gene key profile and everything that's entailed within that. And then after I read a passage of that, I read a passage of the Course in Miracles. So that's something I've been studying for, I feel like it's been about 2 years now. So I study that, again, just a passage. And the cool thing is once you get to the they have the lesson, or it has the overview of everything in the first half of the book. And then the second half of the book, there's a course for students. And then there's like a manual for teachers. So the course for students breaks everything down into lessons. And it's like a whole year where each day is a different lesson. So that makes it easy because, each day is just a different lesson. So I just do the lesson for the day. And then lastly, I am currently studying Walter Russell's home study course, which again, I'm not going to break all this stuff down. Go look that up. And I actually, within the Mighty Networks, the Life Collective Nation community, I have a free resources tab that has, you can just download the whole course for free if you want, and just print them all. That's what I do. I got a big binder and I just kind of print the lessons off as I go, because I still like to, I don't really like reading things on my screen too much. I like listening to things, but as far as reading, I like to have the physical book. Okay. So, and I read a passage or a lesson, because those are kind of broken down in lessons, of different segments as well. So that's my little morning thing. And then I go and I do the dishes, and doing the dishes for me is also my study time, because that's when I'll listen to stuff. And usually what I'm listening to is more along the lines of just books and courses and information that I just want to consume to get the information out of, to put it into practice and integrate in different ways. Okay. And then I start my day. There's a spectrum of about how long that can take depending on my day and, really just how I'm flowing. Sometimes I know I got a more chilled day, so I'll really take my time, and, it might be the first hour and a half, 2 hours of my day I'm spending doing that. Or if it's more of a kind of condensed thing, then like a half hour. Because again, I can adjust the amount of time that I take and how much of different passages that I read. So that's how I look at a lot of these different routines and practices too, is I can scale it depending on what the flow of the day is looking like. It's still, because the consistency is the biggest thing, y'all. As you, again, if you're this far, you should know that. Like, the consistency is the biggest thing. You're better off, even if you just read a word, like literally a word or a sentence from each one of those different books, or, whatever your stack is, whatever your spiritual stack is, bro. Even if you just do that, you're still maintaining the habit. You're still maintaining the consistency. So don't ever trick yourself into thinking like, oh, I don't have time, or, this thing happened and now it's fucked and I can't do it. You can always do it. Same thing with like meditation and any kind of spiritual practice, where maybe your normal practice is 20 minutes or whatever that might be for you, but shit happens and now you got 30 seconds, but still 30 seconds of intentional action, which now we come full circle, y'all. 30 seconds of intentional action is better than nothing, because every intentional act is a magical act. And that's the quote. You like how we did that, huh? So everything that I'm creating is, infused with that, is really how we come full circle with all of that, which that infusion of my essence, it has a lot to do with these little practices that I have on a daily basis that continue to remind me of at least what I feel from my own humble and limited perspective of what the bigger picture is here. Okay. And so that's when I'm designing all these different things, I do my best to keep that bigger picture in mind, to be able to infuse all of that within whatever it is that is being designed. So when it comes to the service flow, and if you're following along, last lesson was extending your service, which was all about, you naturally being of service as an outpouring of you being the best you that you can be through all the work that we've done up until this point, because naturally your cup begins to run over, and the wantingness and the willingness and almost just this deep burning passion at a certain level to serve the rest of you. Because when you get to that level too, you're not just seeing all of this, oh, I want to help you, I want to help this other. You're starting more and more to recognize your connection which then you're serving out of that place of deep love for yourself as a natural extension of that love for yourself versus this sense of duty and obligation. Okay, there's a big difference there. And so that was all about extending your service, last lesson. So this lesson, the service flow, I want to show you how to practically put that into place. We touched on it just at the very end last time, but now I want to give you here's the practical framework for how to install that. And so now obviously in this version, this video podcast version, I'm just going to talk through it, which is also helping me get clarity on the different steps and how to teach it and formulate it. And then in the lesson, I will do more of a tangible breakdown and walkthrough. Basically, like I said, it's stepping a little bit into that theory territory. So everything that I share with you right now may not have a super practical use as of yet, because this is what I am currently implementing, even though it has not been fully implemented to its fullest extent. So you get a little bit of, which I think is cool too, because you can kind of see the way that I think about things when I'm designing the bigger picture and then how that actually connects to the practical implementation. So let's just hop right into it, because it's really not that complicated, even though there is a lot of depth to it. And the main premise that this is all operating on, which is why I call this a service flow rather than your marketing plan, for instance, is because this is all about you being of service to the highest level possible. It's just being practical and strategic and tactical with the way that you are choosing to serve, so that you can create a system around it, so that you can essentially create automation around it, so that you can scale it to whatever level you're called to scale it. For me, in the way that I design things and build things is, I'm called to scale it to a worldwide level. And so the way that it is being built is with that intention in mind, to be able to essentially handle an entire world. Okay? I know that sounds a little ambitious, and it damn well is, motherfucker. This is what I'm here to do, okay? But the cool thing is, from that big picture, it encompasses the smaller versions, although no less potent and powerful, but the smaller versions of that, okay? And also, as a little just nugget, a little caveat, changing the world is still just a reflection of you changing yourself, which is another reason why this is called a service flow, because you're just serving yourself to the highest level that you can, which serving yourself is the service to the whole, because serving yourself is adding wholeness to more wholeness and helping to realize a potential that can be recognized and be an example and an inspiration for others to see that within themselves, for the rest of you to realize the potential you have realized within yourself. Okay, so these things all come full circle. So the first step of this service flow here is to create a flow chart. And in this, you have to be very clear about where, it's a map, where you are starting. But the difference is, so we created a map about you personally with the beginning lessons of what we did, of where you are, where you want to go. Now we are creating a flow, a map of where your, again, we'll just use, marketing business terms to keep it relatable and simple, where your ideal client is, your ideal customer, if you will, or however you want to term it, the ideal person that you want to serve, where they are, where they're starting, and then ultimately what kind of journey that you want to take them on. So it's the same concept, but now instead of a map being just for you, you are extending that map to help somebody else go on their own journey through the framework that you have created. Okay. So when I drew this out, I mean, I have some notes here that I may or may not show or explain, but basically when I mapped this out, I started with, okay, where are all of the potential ideal people at? And again, you want this to be related to, you don't want to start fishing in some faraway pond that you don't ever travel in or you don't ever go to just because you think there might be some people over there. Ideally, you want to just stay where you already are. Because we're not trying to create this whole extra thing in your life. You want this service flow to just be a natural extension of you being of service. So it's not some crazy thing that you got to, implement this whole other thing. We're just getting clarity around what is a natural framework that we can create, which is just an expression of your genius through your service into the world, into the rest of you. So where are you already at? That's a little key too here. A lot of times the person that you're trying to help is just a previous version of you. And so where are you at? And then from where you are at, where you naturally go to, that is connected to the most amount of people that you can help, that would be open potentially to receiving your help and your service, where are they at? And for me, it's like I'm naturally on Instagram and YouTube, and primarily YouTube, but I use Instagram to share a lot of what I do with YouTube, because I personally, again, this is according with my own life types and key processes, I really enjoy these longer discussions. It's kind of this more long format of sharing. And so that's why I do most of my content on YouTube, of how I share and how I teach, and obviously music as well, but even then that kind of funnels into YouTube, because you want to make this as simple as possible. So for me, I choose, like, YouTube is really my number one platform as far as like this holding ground for all of the content that I create. So from YouTube, then I also, because I'm on Instagram, and that's another platform that I utilize, that's where there's a big connection, and the Instagram is more of the kind of the surface level connection point, even though YouTube is the underlying foundation of it all. But again, it doesn't, obviously social media is a huge thing, but that doesn't have to necessarily be within the way that you are connecting with people. If you're not there, if you're primarily just, interacting with people day to day at your, current job or your different local communities that you frequent, it doesn't matter. It's just, where are you at? And then based on where you're at, where are the people that you could potentially help to serve? And then that's just step one, figuring out where that's at. Okay. So then step two, and this, I mean, they're kind of both the same step, and this may even be a step before, this may even be the first step, is where is the end result here? Where do you ultimately want to be able to take these people? Like, what kind of journey, what's the end result of that journey? And again, this is going to be very unique to you based on how you feel called to show up, how you feel called to serve. Like, maybe that is some kind of workshop. Maybe that is some kind of course that you want to lead people to. Maybe it's just, ultimately the end goal is to just have people engage with your creations, whether that's some kind of piece of art or music or performance. So whatever that is for you. And again, this should be kind of easy by now, because by this point, you should already have established what is the ultimate expression of me serving myself, the ultimate expression of my own unique genius, at least from what I see at this current level of where I'm at in my awareness. Okay, so for instance, for me, it is the taking somebody all the way to the master level of the certification program. So that's like the end goal because again, for me, I want to help people help themselves. And I want to essentially change the world, quote unquote, by helping people change themselves. And so the way that I've developed everything and really just been what's coming through, how things have been coming through, it all kind of ends at this master level, which is in essence, it is kind of a full circle by the time you get to that point, as I talked about in the last lesson. But that's the end goal. So now I know where ultimately I want to take people, and I know where they're starting at. I know where the majority of those people are going to be at, and how I'm going to reach them. Now, this is another point where it might look a little different for you and a lot of different people, because if you know that you are targeting a very specific person, then it'll be a little easier about the message that you are putting across. Because what I have done, because my target, which I've had like if you're talking to a marketing guru, at least the typical marketing guru, they're going to say that like, this is stupid and you shouldn't do this. But again, this is from my own experience of really struggling with this stuff, and then having to find my own way to navigate these different things, because it's what I truly felt in my heart, in my intuition of how I'm called to show up, and just what it's looking like, and just what's coming through. And that is, I truly feel called to serve everybody. But the thing is, when in like business and marketing standards, when you're trying to target everybody, that's such a broad message that nobody hears it, because you're scattered with your message. But the thing is, which I'm going to walk you through here, and kind of a system that I've developed to navigate that, is I know that what I am providing is truly of service to everyone, because it is of service to the whole individual. Now, that being said, not everybody is going to be inclined to use this path that I have laid out to go on their own journey and to come to find their own unique genius. What this whole course has been, not everybody's going to resonate with this path that has been laid out through me. And that's fine. But the path in itself is applicable to everyone. So in essence, and this even goes into the end goal of where I'm trying to lead people. In essence, I'm trying to take somebody that has zero clue, zero awareness. And I call it, and this may sound harsh, but whatever. It's like, I call it victim. So I'm trying to take somebody from a victim as an archetype all the way to a master. And I've developed different levels. So this is where I have what I call levels and degrees that correlate with, and this is respectively, so levels and degrees that correlate with messaging and means. Okay? So there's 4 key levels, and this correlates to the 4 levels of the certification program, because again, I try to keep everything connected. So if you remember in the certification program and just the different levels of the game, you've got the athlete, the coach, the leader, and the master. Okay? And so I call it like those levels in themselves are when you're actually engaging in the game. But each one of those levels has a correlate on the other side that has not yet fully engaged in the game of life. Okay? And what I call it, just to keep things simple, I call it uninitiated, which essentially for me is like they're not within the nation, they're not within Life Collective Nation, they're not exposed to what we're doing, what's being built here. And then I have initiated, and obviously you can see the little play on words there, initiated, which they are in the nation, they're exposed to the work. And that's when you kind of start to go through the different levels of the athlete, the coach, the leader, and the master. But on the other side of each one of those, so on the other side of the athlete, you have the victim, which would be the uninitiated. On the other side of the coach, you have the player. On the other side of the leader, you have the seeker. And then on the other side of the master, you have the apprentice. Okay? So the victim, the player, the seeker, and the apprentice are the different levels that are outside of the nation. So this is where, again, this is all correlating now to beginning to draw this map, create this journey of how people are going from never to zero awareness and where they're actually at. So related to where I'm at, so YouTube, Instagram. So tailoring the message based on the level, and then the degree is the means. So the degree is whether this person or these people are how I am relating the message. Now I know this might start to get a little complicated, but there's some depth here. If you might have to listen to this a few times. So the degree is, I just keep it simple. You know, there's, and here I'm going to reference my little chart here. So the cold, warm, and hot. So those are typical in the marketing space. So you have a cold audience, which is people that's never heard about you before. They have no idea of your existence. And then the warm audience, which essentially is like, okay, maybe they're acquainted with you. It's like an acquaintance. They know of you. They don't really know a lot about you, but they know they've heard of you before. It's not completely new. And then hot is like, yo, I really fuck with this dude. Like I've been following him. I know what's up. I'm hot. I'm hot and ready to go. HOTTOGO. So that's hot. So those are the different degrees. So you can have, and I will show you if you're on the video, I might draw this out on the, or at least show it to you on the course, but I have this little chart that I created that breaks down each of the different levels and then each of the degrees within that level. So you can have a victim, which is someone that's, you know, completely, again, just victimized. And what I did too, and this is like even a deeper level, is I took each one of these levels and I used the 4-quadrant approach from Ken Wilber, which there's a personal interior, personal exterior, collective interior, collective exterior. So each one of those levels correlates to a different message. So the victim as an archetype, there's different self-talk. There's different messaging at each one of those different quadrants. So I can read you a couple examples just so you understand here. So let's see. We've got the victim, which I call mindless play, okay? Whereas on the other side of that, master is mindful play. And I broke that down a bit in the last lesson. So the victim, so personal interior, is like, what are you wanting? Like what's, if I were to provide you a message, what would resonate with you? Now, again, these are just ideas at this point. This is what I'm currently implementing. As you can imagine, because I am essentially trying to target everybody, it's led me to this path of how to create these different messages for these different kinds of people that's essentially saying the same stuff but resonating at different levels depending on the degrees, and then simplifying that by aligning that to the way that we structure our program, as I will get into last. Okay, how to tie that all together. So personal interior is like, I just want to feel good about myself. Again, this is coming from the perspective of the victim. I just want to feel good about myself. Is it something that person might be saying to themselves? And then the personal exterior, so is like, okay, this is my body. And it's like, I really try to resonate people that would resonate with me and then the message that they may be like their own self-talk of people that would resonate with me, which would be similar to my self-talk if I were to put myself, or even just go back into my past and imagine or remember what I was telling myself. Okay. So that's where you got to think like your ideal person, like the person that you're trying to target. So the personal exterior is, I want to look so good, I'd fuck myself. Okay. And then the collective interior is, how you're relating in the culture. So that's be liked and respected by others. So you can see it's like these things are very more surface level at the victim. And then the collective exterior is, how you're integrating with the rest of society on a more surface level. And I want to play with others to make the game more fun. So, and that's relating to this game that is being played, that this whole curriculum is built around. So to contrast that, just all the way on the other side with the master. So the personal interior of the master is serve yourself. So I want to serve myself so I can serve myself. So you can see how somebody at that level would resonate more with that message versus on the other end of the spectrum, somebody at the victim level wouldn't really resonate with that message, even though in essence they're leading to the same thing. You see what's going on here? So the personal exterior of the master is, I want to realize the highest expression of my being. Again, looking so good, I want to fuck myself. In essence, we're kind of saying the same thing. It's just we're tapping into people that like basically completely different levels of awareness of themselves and the world around them. And then the collective interior, how you're navigating in the culture. Again, it's for the master, it's I want to serve myself so I can serve myself. Okay. And then the collective exterior of the master, how you're integrating with the rest of society, is I want a community of others to play with. And so you can see, because again, like I said, the victim is mindless play, the master is mindful play. So it's still all about play, whereas the different ones are, leader, player, like player is compete and win. Okay. And the leader is help others and to transform. Okay. So there's like these different levels. So I don't want to go into all that. I mean, you can imagine, and this may not necessarily pertain to what you're trying to do. So we don't want to get lost in the weeds of that. I may get deeper into it in the course or in the actual whiteboard lesson though. So basically I have a messaging chart for each one of those levels. And then based on the message for each one of those levels, I have how I would, the means that I would provide that message, that I would share that message based on the different degrees. And this is, again, engagement. So, saying, I want to help you feel good about yourself. The means at which I do that is going to look different, whether I'm talking to a cold audience where I might, primarily operate off content and paid ads, versus when I'm talking to a warm audience, which I might try to spread the message through the different events that we're hosting and also content at a more personal level. And then through the hot level of engagement or degree of engagement, I might spread that message through an actual personal invitation, because that we're already acquainted, like that person's already know me and they fuck with me, they fuck with what's going on. Okay. Versus if I try to do that right at the initial, it may not work as well, although it could. Again, these things require testing and I'm currently implementing them. All right. So coming all the way back to the flow. So that was like, so you can kind of see the underlying concept of the flow. So now the actual flow in itself, now that you have a grasp of really the idea behind it. And then again, it doesn't have to be this elaborate and laid out, because if your target audience is very, very specific, which, if you study most marketing, they'll say that should be very, very specific. And mine is very, very specific. It's just the very, very specific, just like the theme of this whole course, it's turning the everything into just one thing. So the one thing is just people that want to play the game of life, people that want to engage in the game of life. Like it's a very specific who I'm targeting. It's just that specificity just so happens to include 8 billion people, everybody on the goddamn earth. Okay. Which is why I've developed all these other tools to help that. But now you're going from, so now all you got to do is just draw a map, the journey that you want to take somebody on, going from where they're all already at. And this could also include different partnerships. That's another, what's his name? Russell Brunson talks about the 100, the hot 100, something about 100. It might come to me. But basically it's like the people that are already connecting with the audiences that you want to connect with. That's one of the easiest ways. Maybe it's the hot 100 or something like that. That doesn't sound right though. But basically, again, where are they starting at? Where are they currently at that you are currently at? And then what is the step-by-step process to get them to where you ultimately want to take them? The journey that is, again, and I can't stress this enough, in line with your own natural flow of service. So obviously it's going to look very different for everyone, but the principles are the same. So I'll share mine. So essentially for me, it is pretty simple. It's like, I want to take somebody from never hearing about us or me or whatever, the Life Collective Nation, and I'm reaching them primarily through YouTube, through Instagram, and also through our partnerships that we already have established within the community, although those would kind of be like a subtle next level. Because basically I want to take people from being uninitiated outside of the nation into the nation. And the way that I primarily do that is through the free course. That's really the primary way. Again, ideally you want this as simple as possible. You don't want to have like all these places like, oh, I'm going to take them there, then I'm going to take them there, and I'm going to take them there. You want it as simple as possible, but you can also build things out as you go to accommodate for the nuances of the journey. Okay. But that's primarily, for me, that's what it is. Like from outside of the nation, from uninitiated to the free course. And then the free course gets them inside of the nation. And then once they're inside of the nation, then we have different events and things to just get people engaged and involved. But ultimately, at its simplicity, we have enrollment week. And then enrollment week takes people into the certification program. The certification program has 4 levels that leads to the master. So it's really as simple as that. So uninitiated on social media, whatever. And going back to the whole concept of the service flow, again, I'm not just asking myself, how can I like just drag somebody along and pull somebody along? It's what level of service can I provide at each one of these steps to the highest expression that I possibly can, that will help someone just that wants to go deeper and deeper, because that's really all it is. It's like on YouTube and Instagram, I'm sharing the same message, just like this podcast. I put this out for free on the podcast platforms and YouTube, and then I share clips on Instagram. So it's all out there. So I'm even at the basic fundamental level, I'm still doing my best to serve at the highest level possible. It's just at each subsequent level, I'm able to take that person or the audience deeper and deeper and deeper into the journey. But it's all related on how deep they want to go. It's not like I'm like forcing people to do anything here, or even trying to subtly be deceptive and persuasive about things. It's like, if you want to go deeper, here's the next step. If you want to go deeper, here's the next step. So being uninitiated outside of the nation, if you want to go deeper, the life tutorial, the free course. And then if you want to go deeper, you can actually like start playing this game that is being built, that is starting to be implemented. So in essence, like you start playing this game, which again, you don't have to go any further. You don't have to go inside of the nation to get a tremendous amount of value. It's just that the deeper you go, the more tailored the experience is. And essentially, the more you help me to help you. Because if you engage in the free course, now you are helping me to help you, because I put it all out there and it's like just ready and hot to go. It's ready and waiting for you. You just got to engage with it. And then if you like that, then you can go deeper into the community and help me to help you through the different events that we're hosting and through the different workshops and things like that. And then at an even deeper level, then you can go into the certification program. And then that's really gets to the deepest aspect, which is that master level, going to the master level. All right. And so lastly, because that's the basic concept, lastly on our journey here is you can, especially in my case and potentially your case, if you have these different people that you're targeting at these different levels with these different messages, first and foremost, you want to ask yourself, okay, what's the best way for me to serve? It's always going to come back to that question. So right now I'm doing this free course that I'm building, but the free course, at least this iteration, is about to be completed. And then the next phase is I'm going to be doing weekly workshops. But the way that I'm going to design those workshops is I'm going to integrate the messaging with the different levels based upon the programming that we do for our training in like these different areas of the life attributes that we are trying to get better at. Okay. So that goes back into the rhythms and the cycles of things. So that's really, once we build these structures, just like with your RPM plan and the life types and the key processes, then we want to establish rhythms and cycles for these things. So you can kind of tap into the universal flow, the natural flow, and then you will naturally be able to ride the waves, which paradoxically, because you're intentionally having these up periods and down periods, you can be more continuous and consistent with your flow. Okay. So the way that looks practically is, for instance, on a rest week of the training cycle, even like a rest cycle, the emphasis might be more on the victim messaging, because at the rest phase, that's more in line with the victim or the athlete on the other side of that. Remember, there are two sides to it. And then the prep phase is the messaging would be more aligned with the player or the coach. Okay. And then the build phase would be aligned with the seeker and or the leader. And then the peak phase would be aligned with the apprentice and the master. And just very briefly, just so you can get an idea of the different levels in the messaging, even though I won't go through the whole thing, is, like I said, victim is like mindless play. It's just complete separation. I actually have, let me find quickly, I have one more little chart here that I can share where I broke this down on each one of the different levels. There we go. I found it. So, let me see here. Where are we at? Okay. So the victim / athlete is like unconscious incompetence. Don't know what you don't know. You don't know. Okay. And then coach, player, is conscious incompetence. Know that you don't know. Okay. Leader, seeker, conscious competence. Know that you know. Master, apprentice, unconscious competence. Don't need to know what you know. Okay. So again, these things break down into like the athlete, victim, egocentric, coach, player, ethnocentric, leader, seeker, world-centric, master, apprentice, integral. Okay. So obviously each one of those different levels, those essentially stages of consciousness, there's going to be different messaging related towards that. But again, as you can imagine, there's a lot of different seemingly moving pieces, but they're all on one flow. So, it's taken me a bit to fully install and implement this, but the design is all here. So the principles are all here. So you can start to, again, just do this with me at this point. Like we're riding together now. Do this with me at this point. Start implementing these things. And again, like the design, at least for me, is the most important step of really mapping this all out. And then just decide, okay, where am I going to start? And it should just be, if you do this right, it really should just be this natural flow for you. That's really what we want to continue to come back to. It's just a natural extension of who you are. Like you just feel called to serve. You're just serving in ways that you're naturally called to serve, and whatever that looks like. Because as we got into in the last lesson, you being you is the best thing that you can possibly be for everyone else, i.e. you, the rest of you. Okay. So that's it, y'all. It's a little bit of a longer one today, although I went on a little spiel about my whole morning routine. But that is it. That is the service flow. So we are really, again, we're really expanding out now. We're really starting to branch out and then create these systems that keep it very simple, that we can automate and scale. And then I don't know yet, but as I'm imagining will unfold over these next two lessons, 29 and 30, it's going to now bring it all together, coming full circle, and essentially, most likely, ending right at the beginning again. All right. So thanks for tuning in. I hope this was valuable for you. I mean, hell, just me sharing this was extremely valuable for me. So hopefully we both received some value out of this and we're able to pleasure each other from this interaction. And yeah, thanks. Gratitude. Blessings, y'all. Love. Peace. I'll see you soon.